There it is.
Okay, assuming that we are live. Yes, we are live. So greetings, 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 and welcome to Michelle Speaks. If you hide it, you can't heal it. I'm Michelle Porty, the host of the hour. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran. I'm a life recovery coach, author, entrepreneur, voice talent. But most importantly, I am an advocate. And I advocate for causes such as mental health, domestic and sexual assault, and also provide voice for those that otherwise would not provide a voice. Today, on today's series, we are talking about how one combat veteran survived COVID-19. Before I introduce you formally my guest, I wanted to share with you a little bit how I met him. I came to know Dave a couple of years ago at a veterans retreat that we both attended. Um, and I got to know a little bit about him, but I'm not going to share that much about him because I want him to do that himself. So again, welcome and thank you for tuning in. And so without further ado, Dave, thank you so much for agreeing to come on and share with us your journey. Thank you so much for agreeing to be open, transparent, and vulnerable and authentic. And so for my listening audience, Dave, can you tell us who is Dave Fernandez, personally, professionally, and financially? I mean, and spiritually. I'm sorry.
Financially, I'm sort of above water. Not really, but bobbing in the breeze.
Right.
I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk to you today, Michelle. It's been a minute. It's good to see you. Like like Michelle mentioned, we met at a veterans retreat a little while ago, and that's something that actually kind of kicked off my whole journey through this process of coming to peace with my past and coming to peace with right now and not being glued to what's going to happen in the future. So personally, I was born in 1982 in Los Angeles. Both my parents were well, at the time my dad was a teacher and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And I came from a whole family of educators, so if I misuse the English language here, I apologize to my family immediately. But I'm the oldest of three. I have a younger sister and a younger brother. I'm blessed to have a huge extended family, huge extended circle of friends going back to grade school. Yeah, personally, I just I'm that kind of person who likes to learn things by doing. So, that's kind of how I got into the same world that Michelle spent her time in. So that's how we kind of gravitated towards the same spot. Professionally, I've worked for the Department of Defense in various capacities for the past 18 years, almost 19 years. That includes active operations in Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, and the Global War on Terror. So yeah, thank you for your service. I never know what to say when I hear that. Like, you too? I don't know, but
right.
but as far as professionally goes, yeah, my work is centered completely around service to country in any way that I can. When I got hurt, when I got sick and couldn't fight or anything like that, I joined with the space program and worked until 2015 for them. So overall, my career has been in civil service, and I really wouldn't want it any other way. Spiritually speaking, I think I'd rather talk about my finances and my spiritual life, but just saying is, I definitely will say that I lost my path a little bit coming out of what I came out of, just because this was more or less, at least from what I could see, an ideological conflict, ideological war, and that kind of shook my foundation. Even though I was raised Catholic, I was baptized, I went to K through 8 Catholic school through grad school. It really rocked my foundation spiritually to take part in something of that magnitude, because it really did seem to be quite you know, religious bent. And I'm slowly getting back into my conscious contact with my higher power, and that's where I'm at right now. And I'm pretty hopeful that we will mend our fences in the next couple of months.
Well, in a nutshell, that's a little bit about you, Dave, personally, professionally, and not financially, but spiritually. So my apologies for that. I just want to segue before we get right into the meat of it, why we are here. I wanted to talk about this topic, and Dave kind of charged me to, because now we are in the midst of some very certain times. I believe it's more important than anything for people to hear it from a personal standpoint, the importance of making sure that you're protecting not only yourself, but your loved ones, that you're abiding by the precautions that are set in place to minimize the impact that we're having to this COVID-19, and kind of just to bring it home and make it very real to you, because a lot of things really don't connect to, because we're not personally affected by it. Because the veteran in mind, I was personally impacted by watching his journey as he shared journey on Facebook. Thank you again. So I just want to get right into it. Before we get into the meat of it, can you share with us a little bit about your military service, and what caused you to have some of the challenges that you have, with mental health, and how you've been impacted by that, by what you experienced in your military career? How
Sure.
how that parallel to the experience of COVID?
Absolutely. So I was blessed enough to be able to kind of see a lot of different sides of the war, the wars, from different vantage points, whether it's actual boots on the ground when I worked with the 3-3 ACR,
Right.
the cavalry, all the way up through tactical air command and stuff like that. My general, I guess, effect from all that is just I have a stutter that I can hear, but nobody else. Either everyone's being nice, or that is what that is.
And I don't hear it. So.
Yeah, thank you. It's better to just go off the top like that, then I don't stutter so much. But it left me with it really affected me in all aspects of my life. I mean, my future, or the future of my career, was in jeopardy, because my whole identity as a person was no more and no less than the sum total of the things that I had done. And that's kind of a spiritually bankrupt way to look at what I've been blessed to have been able to provide and have provided for me. And I think that just every aspect, I mean, my sleep aspect, I'm up all the time pretty much. I have the occasional flashback, I have the occasional nightmare. But overall, just over the last 7 years of therapy through the VA and through programs like the one that I met you at, I've really been able to take kind of that next stride and say, I have this, but it doesn't have me. And that's something that's taken the power back. And that's something that I find is very, if there's no message out there, it's just that you can take the power back by saying, yeah, you've got this, but it does not have you.
So with that being said, and all that you experienced, and you working diligently on the journey to sustain the power that you've taken back, how did you react to initial response when you found out that you actually had come into contact and you tested positive for COVID-19? Did you have any symptoms? Was it a surprise, or was it something that you want to be tested because you felt like been exposed to it? Walk us through that.
Sure. So my last contract with the Department of Defense, that actually I'm off for 6 months now, because they don't know how long the recuperation period is going to be for it. And so I'm just not going to future trip over that at all. But my unit covered the Service Forces Logistics Center for
Mm-hmm.
all of the Westpac, which goes from the west coast of America, of the United States, all the way to the South China Sea. Um, so it was a really interesting experience. Fortunately or unfortunately, my unit was one of the units that was sent out to go do command and control and logistics for the Diamond Princess offloading. So it was very, very similar to combat, and that there's some ugliness up there on that ship. You don't know what it is,
Right.
but you know that it's probably not going to be, let's all hold hands and sing songs together. Same
Mm-hmm.
thing, parallels right back to, the early years in my career, where it's like, yeah, I know I'm not jumping out of this Bradley to go shake hands with somebody and say, hey, how's it going? That was
Right.
the biggest thing, was just being able to draw back on my experiences from the past and realize that, what got me through this. Humor,
Mm-hmm.
gallows, that dark humor that you get when you're in a bad place, and it was nice to be able to take the diagnosis in stride. I didn't feel anything until Friday the 13th, go figure, of March, and that day I got remanded to the to sick call to go get a COVID test, and I did, and from that point on, from 12 no from 13 March till now, I've been quarantined by myself in my house, like literally not even being able to leave the house to do anything. So that by
So I
itself
know,
has been, what's that?
I know that you spent a period of time in the hospital, but when you were initially diagnosed, you voluntarily went because you knew you had been exposed, or your command advised you to go and get tested?
So I was remanded to go get tested. I had my little slip to show the clinician. When I drove up, to be honest, I thought it was going to be all good. I just thought, you know what, I'm drained because I had a real long week. And this was a real tough job to do. But um, the way they do it with COVID is they set up their parking lot into a little like MASH unit, little triage ward, where you go to number one and they take your temperature, and if it's like this, they say, okay, drive to number two. And then they check your eyes and your ears. Okay, yeah, go to number three. They check your nose and your throat, and then if all those come back checking all the boxes for possible COVID, then they send you downstairs to a fourth location to actually get the test done. And I will admit, it was pretty. I mean, I think you and I share a unique um, bond as far as experience in life goes, where if we are remanded to go somewhere, we best be going to that place,
Right.
or else
It's
you'll
a
be peeling potatoes for a
voluntary,
few months.
voluntary mandatory, right?
Yes, man, and that's what it was, and it was very. I'd say probably the worst part of it all was it took 4 hours to go through those four stations at
Oh
the
wow.
clinic before I got my test done. So they'd send somebody out to my car in full spacesuit to take my temperature, check all that stuff. And then when I finally got down to the basement to go get my COVID test, I had to give them my Department of Defense Common Access card, and I had to give them my driver's license, because they called, said, "Yeah, this is Dave Fernandez Jr. Date of birth this, driver's license number this, address this," and they were
So
on the phone with.
what were you experiencing? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I know there's a delay. I gotta allow for that. But what were you experiencing when you were approached by medical personnel in full gear? I mean, what was going through your mind?
Uh, I immediately was hoping that I wasn't about to get the CX put in my eyes by somebody who's got stuff on the little bit of nerves. Honestly, I would say the most nerve-wracking thing about the whole process was just that it took 4 hours to go through it. So it's like, I drive up and it's like, okay, I'm doing it because I got told to do it, so I'm here. And then it's like, oh man, they took my temperature. I didn't know I had 102-degree temperature, but I did. All right, well that's one. Then it's second trip. Now that's two. Third trip, three. Fourth trip, when they took my license and my CAT card, it was like, okay, this is real. And I didn't even have time to fight it. It came on very quickly. I was working my tail off up until 12 March, and I woke up that morning of the 13th just flat on my back. Just could not get up, couldn't get out of bed. Took me probably a good hour and a half to get my stuff together, and I just called in and said, "Hey, I'm feeling like garbage," and then that's when I got let known that I've been remanded to go get tested. So I'd say the most scary part. I mean, the bunny suits are definitely off-putting, but just the part that was toughest to put up with was the actual test, because they stick a Q-tip up into your brains somewhere and figure out whether or not you have COVID. So that's probably what I was most nervous about, to be honest with you.
Well, there was no other indication except that you went to bed fine on the 12th of March, and the 13th of March you woke up and felt like
yeah, I mean, I've heard that euphemism of I was so tired I couldn't get out of bed today, and it's like, yeah, okay, cool, but no, that struggle was real, and like it really did. One thing it did affect was nightmares. That was not something that I was expecting, but it did. There's a lot of things, so I just had to, just kind of surrender the outcome to however it's supposed to be, and that got me over the initial hump.
So when you said it caused nightmares or led to nightmares, what was it? Was that a trigger from your already underlying condition like the PTS and other conditions you may have had, or was it because of the experience of that?
It was a bit of both. I was put on quite a few psych medications for post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, post-traumatic stress. It's not a disorder. I was put on a bunch of medications for that, and it ended up rendering my pancreas weaker than it should be. So when I initially went into the hospital, my my pancreas levels were about 10 times higher than they're supposed to be, like way off scale. And that was the scariest thing. I really didn't have any fears of dying of COVID, but when I heard the word pancreatitis and I saw the numbers and then I saw the reference range, it was like, oh man, that was probably the biggest scare point of the whole thing, was just seeing it affects other organs that aren't just your lungs or your heart. Being in fairly okay shape, I guess. My lungs and my heart were fine, and it ended up attacking my more my GI system than anything else. So
how many days did you end up spending in the hospital, and what was that experience like?
I spent a combined 8 days in the hospital, and then maybe 3 or 4 overnights in the emergency room. So all told, a little bit over 2 weeks in the hospital. It was different. I mean, I've been in there a couple of times before for surgeries or for just other issues. But it was scary being in that ward, because you're behind these double ISO locked doors, like where one door won't open until the other door is locked closed. So it's like I'm in an airlock. I'm there by myself. The nurses maybe do. I mean, they're trying their darndest and they're working their hardest, and I kept on focusing on how diligently and bravely they all worked through that, and that kind of helped keep me grounded while I was in there, because when it's 8 days and you don't get a hug from your mom, or you don't get a hug from your pops, or your friends can't come by and visit, none of that stuff. It is lonely, and you do have to kind of manufacture ways to keep your head up. But I found that just through this whole experience, the only way that I got through this how I have is by just thanking God that I have the support network that I do, and B, just trying to chop it up as much as I could with the doctors and nurses, because shoot, at that point we're all stuck in the same hospital together, so we might as well be friends.
So that was the only and thank you so much for that. That was the only contact you had was with the nurses and the doctors. Were you able to see other patients that were battling with as well?
I did. It was actually really sad. On the first day that I was there, maybe a quarter of the 50 or so patients that were on that ICU room were on ventilators. And when I left, I actually had to have a powwow with the doctor and say, "Look, I don't feel good about the fact that I'm the only one up here." By the way, and in that 8-day time frame, it went from having a fraction of the population on a ventilator to when it was time for me to go, I was the only one that was not on a ventilator. So that showed me just how quickly this can, things can turn bad, and that's really where I was able to lean into my, background with defense. Is just you engage whatever you're presented with, and you just have to do it.
So you really tapped into the tools that you had to help you to kind of sustain yourself. I mean, at least
very much so. I mean, there actually was one night where I got pretty upset, and I actually had the doctor kind of put me at a little bit lower energy state, just because there was one particular night that I think in a 4-hour span, 6 people passed away on my ward.
right.
And that, after number one, it's like, oh man, I'll pray for him or her. 2, same thing. 3, oh man, that's getting uncomfortable. 4, 5, chomping my fingernails off. And then once I saw 6, I just pressed that nurse call button. Like, look, I can't, this is starting to butt up on the PTS,
Right.
that I bring to the table, and it's scary. So I need help.
Just if there's one person, in front of you. So to have 6 in one night, no matter, a couple of hours time, and I'm sure that was very traumatic. I'm sorry that you had to experience that like that. So at that point, did you at all wonder whether or not you were going to recover?
Yeah. Could you repeat that? You kind of broke up a bit.
At that point, when it seems 6 people succumb and lose the battle with COVID-19, did your mindset switch at all? Did you begin to doubt whether or not that you were going to overcome this? Or did you think you were going to
That's a really good question. I mean, if you were to ask me that while I was still COVID positive and, needed to maintain for my family and friends that I'm going to be okay, I probably would have said that didn't have an effect on me at all, but it did, very much so. It was very scary to see people falling out that were my age. Some were younger, some were older. It was just a bizarre situation that you see something so insidious just take things so quickly, and by things I mean people. So there was a lot of initial fright of just being very aware that the doctors are basically learning on me. People that are on vents, they're already unconscious, and they can't answer what they're feeling like. They can't talk to what they're feeling like, or what they're, what's going through their heads or anything like that. But the one thing I was able to do was keep my head on straight.
So basically, you feel like you were a human guinea pig.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm okay with that, you know, because I know it's for the better. It's a lot for the better, um, and I think that it's a beautiful thing that you're able to speak about it afterwards. Because I don't know if you've seen the news reels and all those things, but it always shows the death count. It doesn't show the recovery count, and that's one of the many reasons why I did not choose to. Um,
Dave, are you there? I
yeah, I'm
think I
here.
lost you for a moment. Hopefully he'll come back. I
Oh yeah.
believe he is coming back. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I don't know on with the internet. Are you there, Dave?
Uh, I'm here.
Yeah, okay. So my last question, I think I was asking a question and something happened with our signal. And so what I wanted to ask was, did you know that the ventilators helped or hurt you? Because a lot of the things that are going on in the media, the doctors are saying now that it was the wrong treatment for COVID. So do
Um,
you feel?
yeah, actually, quite a bit. To be honest, it was. I was pretty caught up in that movement too about getting more ventilators out. But the scary and sad truth that I saw was that once you're on a ventilator, your odds go down below the flip of a coin. One
Mhm.
thing COVID does want you to do is to just lay down and die. Um, so I actually think that it's counterintuitive completely to have people just basically laying flat on their back. I mean, even quality of life right now, it still takes me an hour to get going in the morning just because I'm so lightheaded from having, been laying down sleeping. And
Right.
and I forced myself. I mean, now that I can actually go outside, I forced myself to go for walks around the block, and kind of got over that big fat smack to the ego that says, "Man, you're sweating buckets," and you only walked around the block. But it was a
Right.
victory. That was something. But as far as the ventilators go, once you're on a ventilator, the chances that you're going to come off that ventilator successfully are pretty scary.
Mhm. So what were some of the treatments they used to help you navigate while you were in the hospital? What were some of the meds? What were some of the techniques or methods that they used to help manage?
Yeah. So they one thing that was paramount was keeping me hydrated. So I was on an IV drip the whole time. They put me
Mhm.
on a steroid to try and calm down my pancreas because those two ended up. That's the thing. It just ended up kind of being a street fight between COVID and pancreatitis inside of my body for about the last month. But they had while I
Mhm.
was in the hospital, they gave me steroid treatments for that. They um, they gave me one of those azithromycin Z packs,
Okay.
to take for a week. Um, and then I had just the O2 cannula that goes across your face. I didn't have the full mask on because I didn't need it. But that's actually the reason why I left the hospital that eighth day was because there were three people in the emergency room, and I hate to sound crass, but there were three people in the emergency room that were waiting for three beds to open up in the ICU, and the only way beds open up in the ICU is if you leave the ICU through the back door. So that's the sad part is that for I I just didn't feel good as a human being taking up somebody else's spot when they needed that a heck of a lot more than I did. Um,
And so even when you were battling COVID, which could potentially have taken your life, you were so selfless and thinking about others. I mean, it just speaks to the 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 character of man that you are, that even though you were battling this thing, your heart was still focused on others that were softer than you. And I think that speaks volumes to how um, we should be looking at and how we can continue as a society to get through this thing together, is to think about others. And I think that was something key that she said, what COVID wants you to do is just to lay down and not that you keep moving, you kept moving, you kept, fight. And I think that that's key. If there's someone listening in, if there have a loved one they're going with themselves, what would you say to that person if they're speaking?
First, I'd say, hi, I'm Dave Fernandez, and I have survived COVID-19. If you've not met anybody that has survived COVID-19, you have now met one person. To be honest, I would probably just say, God bless you on your journey, but please do whatever you can to keep your morale up, keep your head, looking forward. Don't future trip. You're not on a ventilator right now. It doesn't imply you're going to be on a ventilator tomorrow. Or on the flip side, if your loved one is on a ventilator right now, that doesn't mean they're going to still be on that same ventilator tomorrow. They might, it might go back and they might get better. And that's the thing that I think doesn't really get doesn't really get any sort of optics, is just the ability that people do get over this. This is not, something that's just going to kill everybody.
Right. So it's your will and your mindset. What about, did you have any, or have you had any at all, any feelings of survivor's guilt, because knowing that you were in there by people that were succumbing to it, and you survived, you were surviving, and even when you left the hospital?
I do. I carry a tremendous amount of survivor's guilt. I guess you just call it that, because that's what it is. I mean, it felt very much like a military operation. One, because I was in an ICU, but that might as well have been my unit. My entire unit was fighting the entire same battle, and people were falling out left and right. I mean, out of the probably 50-ish that were on my floor on day one, 24 had expired by day 8. Jesus, and then backfilled with more, with more people. So it was scary to an extent, but that's when you really just lean into your gear. Learn how to learn how to trust your ropes, learn how to trust your support network, and just basically learn how to surrender the outcome, because I probably would have been a much bigger basket case if I didn't surrender that outcome quick. Right. Because it is his will being done, not mine.
Well, so, the way you describe it sounds like you're paralleling your experience with COVID with your military service and being combat zones with your service members.
I would.
That what it felt like?
I'm sorry.
What it felt like? I mean, the way that you're describing it, it sounds like it's parallel to what you experienced when you were in your combat zone, serving alongside your fellow service members. The way that you're describing how you were on the ward, it just sounds like it kind of parallel. Is that how you viewed it when you were there?
It was 100% parallel. There, yeah, believe it or not, there was the parallels were crazy. I mean, I actually ended up being able to be a bit of comfort for the nurses, because by the time I was ready to leave the ICU, I was the only patient on the ICU ward that didn't need a ventilator. And I had a nurse come in to my ISO room just to check me out and change an IV bag and give some medicine. And she just froze. She set the IV bag, and then she goes to, do the medicine part in the IV. And you've seen the look. I've seen the look. You know what look I'm talking about, where they're just staring at the wall, staring at the, not all there. And I was just like, is everything okay? And she bangs the medication home and sat down in the chair next to me and started crying and said, no, everything's not okay. Part of being a nurse, especially an ICU nurse, is you make personal connections with your patients. You make personal connections with their families. You feel like you're their advocate. And though the odds aren't much better in the ICU, it's nothing like this. Like, she literally had nobody else on the ward to talk to because everybody else had been put into a state of induced coma and put on ventilators. So that paralleled my journey post warfighter experience. That paralleled my journey to say, you know what? I've seen that look before. I understand that look. It's a look of desperation. It's just of somebody that really, just like probably, well, both of us did. We know our stories. We learned the hard way that it's not always our will being done, and that's
Right.
what it is. And I was glad, if for nothing else, I spent 10 minutes, getting a nurse to dry her eyes and be like, okay, that's something that I can hang on to.
Not our will, but His will be done. So, your story is so inspiring. It's such a testament to even in times when you thought you were far away, you need to get better in your relationship with God, that He was still right there with you, and He allowed you to be a source of comfort and strength for the nurses that were basically on the front lines, as you often have been at war. And so I'm glad that you were able to be there for her. And I have, one of our audience participants is a nurse herself, and she just kind of resonated with what she said. She said, I've been there many times. And so a lot of support, a lot of love, your spot, a lot of people sharing your story. Just a couple, Monique Danglin has said, to hear your journey of recovery. Ruby Williams, Sunshine there, just singing your praises, and saying they're so happy that you beat this thing. And the way Ruby and Sunshine, aka AC, they are veterans as well. And so I just wanted to make sure that you knew that you have people out here, rooting for you, even though I know you're pretty much over it, but you're still recovering from the effect of having it. And so tell me about that. What are some of the challenges that you encounter on a daily basis as you continue to recover?
On a daily basis, it's kind of twofold, honestly. It's part of it's just that I don't have the exercise tolerance to do darn near anything. So it's frustrating to go from being, I'm gonna break myself, if I don't cross that finish line, to, all right, my finish line is gonna be from my front door to the trash cans and bring the trash cans back inside. And I had to learn just those remedial things. I mean, we were just talking about having a bad knee surgery. I spent 2 months when I lived in San Francisco, about in 2015, that it took me 2 months to climb up Fillmore Street and actually see the San Francisco Bay. But I turned it into a game. It was, today I'm going to make it to this street. Tomorrow I'm going to make it to this next street. In 5 weeks, I'll be at the top. I'll be able to see down and see the San Francisco Bay. I'll be able to see all that stuff. And I swear it was the most beautiful. I mean, I've seen that same site hundreds of times in my life because I live right next to it. But the sun never shone brighter. The water looked blue and crystal clear, even though we all know that it's not. All that stuff, it all looked good. It was a beautiful thing, and that's kind of how this has been with COVID, is just one day at a time, or pare it down to one heartbeat at a time. Kind of keep that same, and keep talking. That's the biggest part for me, was just to keep talking, because just like you very eloquently put, that if you don't let it out, you can't really get over it or get past it, through it.
Feel it, right.
Yeah. So that's been great, because I've been able to talk to a lot of people through the program that are really afraid of COVID, and very rightly so, because it is new. It's all over the news. It's all over everywhere. But it's something that faith faith will carry you a heck of a long way. And you know as well as I do that when your body's ready to quit, your mind's like, no, we're going to take 2 more steps forward before we think about quitting. All right, let's think about quitting after 2 more steps. How about 2 more? And that's kind of been the way that's worked for me, is just saying, you know what, I'm not going to climb up the sheer face of Half Dome in one cut. Might as well go back around and use the stairs and make it a little easier on myself.
Definitely all about mindset. And the other thing that, as I'm sitting here listening to you, and I recall you saying at the beginning of the interview, you didn't really want to speak to your spiritual side, but I heard you throughout this entire conversation speak nothing but faith and how God brought you through this thing. And so even though you thought your relationship was tattered far away, everything that resonates from you is your faith in God's ability and strength that carries you through. So that's a testament in and of it. How did your family and how was your family dealing with, even though you've not come through the worst part of it, but your recovery process, and how was it like when you went back home having to quarantine yourself from your family?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for that one. That meant a lot. I'd say, as far as my family taking it, my dad is a cancer survivor. My mom had a heart issue, and one of my aunts is also a cancer survivor. And then obviously, I've got the 15-month-old. So it wasn't hard to accept the fact that I'm going to need to go into isolation. I don't want to be responsible for getting anyone else sick out there. It's been very hard to be isolated. I mean, it's just not the same to FaceTime your family, than it is to actually be there and be kind of immersed in that jovial atmosphere. But as far as my communicating with my family about how I was doing, I was definitely downplaying how serious it was in the moment. Mm-hmm. But that was part of my own self-preservation as well, I think. But talking to them really made it more palatable to be able to say, okay, you know what, I'm gonna be fine. And I said to them enough times, I'm gonna be fine, that you fake it till you make it, right? And it's like, I'm gonna be fine, Mom. I'm gonna be fine, Dad. I'm gonna be fine, Mom. I'm gonna be fine, Dad. And then finally it's like, you know what? I'm gonna be fine, Dave.
I am so inspired the more that I listen to you, because you weren't faking it, you were faithing it. Faith, Faithing, because it says in the word Romans 4:17, speak those things as not as though they were. So you're speaking it into existence, and then you are living it because you're speaking it. And so, has this made you mentally stronger? And what are you going to continue to do now? What are you doing different now that you've lived through it?
Oh man, I'm coming out of this situation just 180 degrees different person. I've never been given the gift of 2.5 months of solitary confinement, basically. But I've learned more about myself and more about what I can take, more about what I bring to the table that's special is, because that is one of the things that kind of gets knocked right the heck out of you right away when you join up, or when you're part of the defense apparatus. You were just a cog in the machine. But now that we're out of that mindset, you can do whatever the hell you want, and it's fantastic. It feels great to be able to be have that freedom to say, this is my ministry right now. This is my spiritual side. And yeah, there is a big difference between being a religious person and being spiritual. And yeah, thank you for pointing that out, because that's something I probably wouldn't have really questioned much until it got called out. So that really kind of adds a different layer to the whole thing.
Because there's a difference between religion and relationship, and you definitely have a relationship with our Father.
Absolutely.
And nobody else can define that. Nobody else can tell you what that looks like, because you're living. Just you not even opening your mouth and wearing a T-shirt that says, I survived COVID-19 is a testament. That's a witness.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I am so inspired and honored, that you would allow me to share this journey with you as you tell your story of how you survived COVID-19. So, what has been or is the secret or key to your success and stability with this?
The key to my success, honestly, has been at all costs, don't allow myself to isolate, don't allow myself to dwell. If I'm scared, I'll say a prayer the way that
Mhm.
I know how to say a prayer. But for the most part, it's honestly, it's just been such a gift to be able to get that time to maintain that knowledge. But probably the biggest piece was staying out of my own head, allowing the process to take place the way that it was going to take place. I mean, just like you can't wish away the flu, 15 minutes into having the flu, you couldn't wish away that stuff. So being able to accept it wholly, being able to surrender the outcome completely, and then just be able to just joke and joke and joke with whoever I can talk to, whether it's the nurses that come in, or whether it's my family that I could talk to on FaceTime, or whether it's friends and alumni from the alumni association that we can talk to.
Right.
It's really it's really a mix of all that stuff, and really a mix of remembering that we were trained to be highly adaptable,
Yeah.
highly skilled at adaptation. And one of our mutual friends, Troy, told me just yesterday that he said, "You've adapted 1,000 times already in your life. Tomorrow you're going to adapt 1,001 times." And
Right.
I thought to myself, that's
Adapt is basically the
yeah,
mindset. And trusting in your, I know we talked about it before, you said just trusting in your and leaning into your support network. And so for you, who's that support network been for you aside from your relationship with God?
my parents and my aunt Lorraine have been tremendous in helping. I mean, I've had to have groceries dropped off at my house every day because I was not allowed to leave the house. So without my aunt and my folks, to directly do what they did to keep me fed during this whole time. And I really still want to thank my sister too, because she took over my last bit of medications that I'm getting off of, so she's getting back into that again. It really was a team effort, and my brother just he's 10 years younger than I am, so he's my brother, but he's also a brat. But I love him to death, and to be honest, it's without family and friends, it's like I realized right quick when that second isolation door shut. I realized right quick just how important my family was to my just in my life in general. And I know they were all chomping at the bit waiting for me to get out. And I realized that I missed the company too. I mean, there are times we might tussle, we might get into it, but when push comes to shove, it's nice to know that they're there. And it's nice to know that, you know, if I can give anything back, just say, hey, I'm okay. And whatever I can do, kind of pay it forward is what I can do. But I was blessed beyond what I feel I deserve to have so much of a support network. So they really kept everything going.
So silver lining was that you had a greater appreciation for family and your loved ones.
Very much so. And actually, this helped me speak freer about post traumatic stress with my folks and with my aunt, because this is something that they can relate to. Not everybody can relate to what you and I might be able to relate to. But this COVID
Right.
thing has really, I think at this point, you'd have to live in a cave and not have seen people in like 10 years, to not know somebody that has it or has been affected by it or otherwise. And at this point, I mean, I hate to say it, but we're all in this together now, and that's the best way
Yeah.
to look at it. And if anyone gets sick, I'll be praying for them. It's like I know they probably prayed for me while I was sick, and
Oh,
that's really.
I was praying for you. So, what day was one of your most defining moments? What is one of your most defining moments in your life outside of COVID in this year? And you said you've gained a greater understanding of yourself. So, what is the most important thing for you in your life right now?
Honestly, this might sound a bit sappy, but I got firsthand to show my son that daddy doesn't quit. Daddy's not going to lay down and let this die. Daddy's not going to lay down and let this take me out of your life. And that was a beautiful thing, just to even be able to have that little beacon of a dude to be able to share that. Becoming a father easily was the biggest deal of my life, and it was the most positive thing. And that kind of set things into perspective for me to be able to say that I need to get I'm going to say it, we're on the internet. I need to get my shit right if I'm going to be, the dad that he deserves. And, every day that I can practice, the better. And, that's what I took this COVID experience as being, was just every day I have practice of having to be patient, having to endure a false summit of, oh, I made it to the 70. Nope, you made it 70 hours. Okay, start the clock over again. So it's been a big exercise in patience. It's been a big exercise in just getting through it. But I'd say probably the most emotional portion of it was when I got my negative test back finally. And I thought I'd be doing jumping jacks and cartwheels and having all sorts of fun and running around outside in the sun. But no, I came home and I cried for half the day because it was everything that I'd held in those 2 months.
Just an overwhelming flood of emotions.
Oh God, yeah, it was like every single emotion wanted to come out of every pore of my body at that point, and I didn't beat myself up for taking a complete day off to just sit there and eat ice cream, watch some Hallmark movies, and
All right.
just
Well,
be nice to myself.
Emotions are meant to be expressed, not suppressed. So I'm glad that you expressed them. And more of us need to be more compassionate and kind to ourselves, because we are some of the most critical beings of ourselves. And so, that was one of the things that I really enjoyed in you, Dave, because you had so much passion and so much joy in, even with all that you had shared that you experienced during your combat service. You didn't allow that to affect your ability to reach out and to comfort others. It was part of your healing process that you have. Can you kind of explain what that you found that's a part of your healing process and how that helps?
So this is part of it's called an alpha stem. It's called an alpha stem, and what it is it you put alligator clips on your ears, and it helps regulate your brain function while you're coming off of an SSRI or benzo or any of the other. I mean, I have been using this for about a year and a half now, and it's helped see me through the kicking 14 of 16 meds and cutting the last two down to lower than half of their original doses. It works brilliantly. I mean, it's when your mind comes back online, when your body comes back online after you take that medicine away, you get these weird electric shocks. You just don't really feel like, like you can't really feel like you're doing that too much. I don't feel much yet. And I still have that sort of stutter and still have the other issues, but this actually helps to deliver a lot of calming influence to the front of my frontal brain to help me kind of stay on the level instead of freaking out or getting depressed or getting anxious. I mean, I'm not going to say that I was never depressed, anxious, or freaked while I was going through this process, but this definitely made it a lot more of a survivable experience.
Right, right, right. So, I am just overwhelmed with joy to see you on the other side of this experience and to see how you've navigated it, but how you also, even at the same instance you were going through, were still helping others in their meeting them in their, their dark night of the soul. So again, I want to thank you for agreeing to come on and share. And I want you to look into the camera and speak to that person that may be battling or struggling, or maybe they're grieving the loss of a loved one because of COVID, or someone that's in the midst of the battle. Give them a takeaway and a call to action.
Yeah, my main call to action, to be honest, has been I guess the call to action really honestly is to serve your fellow man. And I don't mean that in terms of joining up and enlisting. I mean that in terms of just getting yourself into service however you can. If you have a sick family member that's ailing from COVID, or if you've got family members that are considered to be very high risk for contracting COVID, put yourself into service and be that person that my parents and my aunt were for me, to bring food by, so they don't have to put themselves at, or people like me didn't have to put myself or others at risk. And just have faith that there will be a number of recovered cases. Right now, I don't like the way that it says this is the total number of cases, this is the number of fatalities, and then when you look for recovered cases, it's like little dash line. So it's not something that's portrayed very well, but it's something that have faith that it is tough, it is a battle, it is all the things that it's been advertised to be, but you're bigger than that. And if you've got it, you've got it. It does not have you, and it's really up to you, to stand and fight or to lay down. And that's the crux. I wish I could sugarcoat it a little bit more, but leaning into your faith, leaning into your support. If you don't have any support, you've got my contact info.
Which I'm going to share.
It'll definitely get better. And that's something that I can just keep continuously saying over and over again, is that it will get better. It will get better.
That was powerful, that statement that you made. You've got it, it doesn't have you. If you remember nothing else, remember Dave's words. You've got it, it doesn't have you. That just hit me so profoundly when you made that statement. And again, I thank you for agreeing to come on and be so transparent and vulnerable and be open to sharing your experience, and kind of put a personal touch on it, put a face to, COVID-19, for those, that aren't taking it as seriously. They aren't taking the precautions. They're not going, taking into account those that, they may be impacting, because, they may not get it themselves, but they may carry it. So I just want to thank you so much again for sharing your story. And I want you to share with our listening audience, how can people find you to support your cause, and how they can reach out and communicate with you.
Sure. So my cause is an organization called Lagrange.space, and that is it's a website based on developing novel STEM and STEAM curricula for students K through 12. So especially since, schools aren't in session, the stuff that I put together is stuff that kids can work on at home, and tinker on and keep their skills up. And that's www.lagrange, LAGRANG.space. And then if anybody's reaching out and needs help, I can post my phone number too.
Okay, well, I put there on the bottom of the screen, I put the website and your email. If you want to share your number, but you can go ahead and share that.
Oh, sure, yeah. If anyone wants to send an email, it's djfernandez@gmail.com. If you're struggling with COVID or with anxiety over COVID, you can hit me up. My number is 408-202-7587. I got nothing to do for the next 6 months, so
right.
Gladly.
Except to continue well, right?
Oh yeah, just that, and just keep pushing that it's going to be okay. I got that from my family and my support network, and I would love to pay that forward. If no one knows anybody else that has it, I do or did. Mm-hmm. I had it.
Survived. Sunshine Bear actually said you need to make a shirt that says I survived COVID-19. Julie, Ellie, and so many others that are tuning in said thank you so much for sharing your story. It's motivated them, it's inspired them. And I just, again, can't say enough. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad and so honored that I had the opportunity to meet and get to know you. And I hope that we are able to stay connected, and let me know, how I can support you.
Absolutely. That'd be fantastic. And thank you for having me, Michelle. It's great to see you again.
Well, it's always a pleasure to see you. Your spirit is so calming, peaceful, joyful. And so thank you. Any parting words before we end this highlight?
Yeah, keep the faith, wear a mask, and follow the guidelines. I mean, it really is one of those things that, again, being part of the defense apparatus, if you're a grown adult and you got a curfew, well, then you've probably served at some point. You know how to deal with that. But
right.
Don't go out there and be silly, because you might not even know that you're a carrier. I couldn't pinpoint the minute when I became a carrier, but that's probably it. Just take it seriously. Don't take it to be this side says this side says this. This is not a political issue. It's not even a financial issue. It's just a straight up human issue that doesn't know politics, doesn't care about politics, doesn't care about where you came from. None of that stuff. It just can't come straight up to your front door and set checks you right then and there. So, with that, I would just say, be smart.
Well, there you have it, guys. Straight from the horse's mouth, Mr. Dave Fernandez, a combat veteran, a man of perseverance, a man of fortitude, a man of faith, and a man of great courage. In 3 words, I'm going to give you a synopsis, if you remember nothing else of what David said, is wear a mask, be smart, and I forgot the last one myself. You've had so many powerful nuggets, but at least those 2, be smart. Oh, and we are all in this together. If you remember nothing else, know that we are all in this together. So again, thank you so much, Dave, for coming on. And for my listening audience, thank you guys for tuning in. Please be sure to reach out at Dave. His information is at the bottom of the screen. The website is lagrange.space. The email is djfernandez@gmail.com. And he gave you his number. So thank you guys again for tuning in. This is Michelle of Michelle Speaks. If you hide it, you can't heal it. And go out there and love on someone and serve someone that is battling with COVID-19. Until next time, take care, be well, God bless.
Great talking to you.